keep in mind, everything up here is just talking about maintaining what we have instead of moving forward. And that we should be talking about future needs. So, thank you.
And the next question, I just want to remind everybody too, if we could use the long-established standard of 60-second minutes rather than the longer minutes that folks want to go into. But I'll probably help that by asking a yes or no question. And we're going to start this one in the middle so that we don't, it's always tough, I know. So Senator Fischbach, if you want to take the mic, and we can go to your left, and then we'll start it to the next time in the middle with Senator Peterson and come to the right. So, and this is a yes or no question. Actually, it's two-part, but still yes or no. Do you see yourself as a champion for transportation projects in central Minnesota? And would you request an appointment to the Transportation Committee if elected or re-elected?
I would see myself as a champion for the area and for the transportation projects that we need in the area. If we maintain the layout that we have now, no, I don't see myself asking for the Transportation Committee because I've tried to limit the numbers because I was serving as the President of the Senate. So it's not quite a yes or no, Senator or Mayor Kleiss, but
it's
I try.
under a minute.
I try.
I'll beat that. Yes on the first part, no on the second. I chair one committee already, and Ways and Means, frankly, is a good place to help out with transportation, so I'm going to stick with that.
And I'll say yes on the first part, absolutely on the second part.
Yes to both. Yes to both.
I'm going to say yes to the first part, obviously, but the second one, I have to think about what committee I'd have to give up. I serve currently on state government finance, on higher education, and on capital investment, which obviously has quite the tie to roads, and the rules committee. So the question is which of those committees I'd give up, and I honestly can't give you an answer to that. I'm not sure if I don't serve this community better on the committees I currently serve.
I would say yes to the first and no to the second.
I would say yes, and I appreciate the question because I've had a number of people in the community ask me that already, and I have told them yes. Again, I think those folks have recognized the 8 transportation bills that I authored this last session and helped encourage me to believe I belong on the Transportation Committee.
Absolutely, my track record shows that I support Central Minnesota projects. And number 2 question, I serve on 4 committees right now in the House, and it would be difficult to pick up another committee assignment or to give up one of the other committee assignments that I have right now because of multiple interests that need to be represented in St. Paul. But I do have the benefit of being on a couple of committees with the current transportation chair, and he sits 2 seats away from me on the House floor, and he and I have many transportation discussions. I think that's one of the reasons why we're successful in moving some of the support from the Transportation Committee for the bills I had spoken about earlier for some additional bonding money to transportation.
Yes and yes.
Yes to the first question, especially in terms of public transit and pedestrian access. And yes to the second question, which apparently there'll be a lot of competition for who's on that committee.
Yes, and possibly on the second one. Depends upon the other opportunities, but definitely going to be an advocate for transportation in Washington for our area.
I believe yes on both. I would use some of my background in city planning, community development to leverage that. And this is a very key to central Minnesota. St. Cloud being the core of that. You saw the numbers. We are growing. We need representation in this area very specifically. So yes and yes.
And then we'll start back in the middle again with Senator Peterson and come this way for the third question, and then we'll go to the question. This also again under a minute, yes or no, or with minimal explanation. But third question: have you taken any pledges that would limit your ability to support certain funding options?
No.
Nope.
No.
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 No. No, and I'm the only one at this front table who has not taken any PAC or lobbyist funds.
No.
No.
Is that right? Oh, I was just surprised. That was fairly impressive. Jim Graves had a emergency text he said he had, so he had to just leave. So he apologizes, wasn't able to state that, but he had to leave. Next question, I think we'll start back down on this side, I think, again. I think we're in that order, yeah, I think that's where we're at. This is the question, one of the questions from the audience. What will you do if elected or re-elected to support and encourage public transit such as North Star Commuter Rail and St. Cloud's excellent Metro bus service? That's put in here, Tony, I didn't add that. As well as bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure.
Great question. One, integration of complete streets. A lot of the trends are looking, growth trends in Minnesota, believe it or not, are looking more urban. The exurban sprawl has kind of stopped, and this is going to relieve congestion. I work at the mental health center here in town, and I would say well over half of my clients utilize public transportation as their main source of transportation. So it's vital, and yeah.
Thanks. Well, public transit is something I care quite deeply about. So, you know, in terms of how we think about public transit in this state and in this country, we tend to talk of roads as investments and transit as subsidies. And I'd like to see a shift in that conversation to realize that transit is an investment. And so I would definitely be in support of bringing North Star up to St. Cloud. My district doesn't cover St. Cloud, but a lot of people in my district would be using that system if it ran more frequently and it came all the way to St. Cloud. I'd love to see Metrobus get to St. Joe, and I know a lot of folks in St. Joe, especially college students, would be very interested in having better public transit that way. And essentially how I would fund this is work on how we think out the budget in terms of transportation and basically shift more money towards public transit projects, which I think are grossly underfunded, both on a state and federal level.
First, I want to ask the people in the room a question. Let me just see some hands. How many of you have ridden North Star Commuter Rail? Great, great. I don't know if any of you have tried to take the bus to get to North Star Commuter Rail. How many have done that? Yeah, see, a lot smaller number, and there's a reason for that. If you don't live near downtown or the university, if you live out in the community on one of Metrobus's fixed routes, like for instance I live near the South Side route, if you get on your very first scheduled route of the day, the very first one that runs in the morning, and you ride it to the downtown transit center, and you start looking for the shuttle bus to take you over to North Star Link Park and Ride, you'll find that the last one left half an hour ago. And the reason for that is it went to meet the very last North Star train. If we had one more North Star train and one more North Star Link meeting it half an hour later, that would instantly make North Star transit accessible to our whole Metrobus system. And that's one of two things that I would do to support and encourage public transit and Metrobus. The second thing I would do comes from my experience as a research analyst with an organization called Good Jobs First, which works on economic development accountability. Minnesota has a statute called the Business Subsidy Law, and it puts criteria, actually asks communities to develop a criteria if they're going to give job creation subsidies to businesses. I would like to see the business subsidy law amended to encourage economic development projects to be on public transit. A number of studies that Good Jobs First have done have shown that subsidies tend to move jobs out from the urban core and out to the edges of town where they aren't served well by public transit. You can counteract that by using your scoring system of your business subsidy criteria to say, we'll give you more points, we'll give you a better deal if you keep those jobs on the public transit routes. So that's the second thing I'd like to do.
far as expansion of priorities, Metro Bus and light rail or North Star Corridor, I've always remained open to those and supported those when the opportunities have come forward. We are being limited somewhat with the opportunities because of some federal funding issues that come forward on those. As far as trails and bike paths and things, again, I'll go back and have you look at my record in Sartell. We've got a number of trails we've put in during the 10 years that I've been involved in the city of Sartell that are designed to be able to link up and connect with other communities. I'm a runner, I'm a biker, I appreciate and use those assets personally as well.
In regards to those questions, again, I think you can look at my record relating specifically. I authored the Greater Minnesota Transit Bill, which I think clearly demonstrates my support for that system. In addition to rail transit, the reality of the situation there is that that has everything to do with ridership relating specifically to the federal dollars. And I'm sure many of you in this room are smart enough to realize that Southwest Metro Corridor is clearly in line before the North Star Corridor. And so, like Representative Driscoll, I'm open to issues that we have surrounding those. But when you look at the population base, really from downtown Minneapolis, really going down into Carver County, and the ridership that they have available, it is a huge amount compared to what we can offer on the North Star Corridor, and they're going to get the funding first. That's the reality of the situation there.
And I have been a supporter of Greater Minnesota Transit and want to encourage that, particularly as we move a little further out of the St. Cloud area. That's very important to us. I know that there are folks from Painesville who ride in, and that's what I think is the kind of the furthest away. It's the edge of Stearns County, but there are folks who use that that transit to get into St. Cloud for medical and all kinds of potentially even shopping at sometimes. And I have supported North Star, even all the way up to Rice. I know we're working on St. Cloud right now, but have been supportive of North Star and very supportive of the trails. Worked on Coronas Trail to hook up Wilmer and St. Cloud. Well, actually, it would have been to Richmond, and then Senator Peterson and myself worked on the Ricori Trail to hook the rest of it up. So trying to make that whole link with the bicycle trails.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I have consistently supported Metro Transit, and the one quid pro quo I'll say, and Tony's going to smile when I say this because he and I talk about this a lot, is Metro Bus, yes, Metro Bus, Metro Transit, is that I do tend to favor a prioritization on our roads and bridges, and maintaining and improving our roads and bridges. Transit is also important, I agree with that. And Tony and I have debated, where should the line be? Should it be more for transit and less for roads? North Star Corridor, I go way back with that as well, going back to my city council days. Very much in support of it, still having the question about how do you fully fund it? Who's going to pay for all of it? Is it all state? Are we going to put it on the backs of the counties? Are we going to put it back on the backs of the riders? And you can't do it all on each of those, it seems. So there is some of that hesitancy about let's make sure we know exactly who's paying for it and how much. But I definitely support getting North Star Corridor up here. Ideally, it would be nice to have some sort of connection with our airport. I think that enhances the ability for that intermodal piece. And it ought to go to Rice. I was even involved in some discussions at one point about pulling down some federal dollars if you went to Camp Ripley. Because of the ability to actually have some housing available in case of some sort of disaster of some kind in the Twin Cities area. So there had been some talk at one time about being able to pull down some additional federal dollars to get it all the way to Camp Ripley. So that's my background on that question.
Yeah, if elected, I would be extremely committed to supporting public transportation as well as pedestrian trails. One of the major North Star Corridor is a major issue in our area, in our district. I fully support the extension of the North Star Rail to St. Cloud and to Rice as well. I believe Zach kind of hit the nail on the head a while back when he said that we need to be prepared to offer alternate means of transportation in the future. I mean, our district is a rapidly growing district. We need to make sure that we have different means of transportation readily available for when that time comes.
Well, I actually rode that North Star Rail for almost a year, going down to work at Cedar Street Armory with the National Guard. And I tell you that some of the problems, I drove to Big Lake to catch that train because I catch the first train in the morning and the bus didn't catch the first train in the morning. So I drove there. And it was, you know, it was pretty convenient. The one issue I say is that precludes more use is its schedule. Because, you know, it'd be great to be able to take that every time you're going to fly out of the Minneapolis airport. The problem is it's no problem getting there for an early flight. The problem is when you come home, you got no way to get it home because the train quits running at, you know, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. So if you come in a little bit later, you don't get home. Or it's a good taxi ride. As far as the trail goes, as a Rockville City Councilman, we supported that Rocori Trail and the connection, and we've got the second and third leg of that to come, and that's a great opportunity for both use as a bike path and a walking path as far as just for recreation, but it's also, to me, it brings in, you know, tourism dollars because folks come here just to use those kind of trails. So, thank you.
I support the MTC. I think it's important for our students and for our low-income citizens that they have affordable transportation, reliable transportation. I support the North Star as well, but like Senator Peterson, I agree with him that it's not likely to happen for us. The numbers aren't there. We somehow have to change the economic equation to make it work. I'd like to comment briefly in response to Senator Peterson's comment about the glass being half full or half empty. I'm a practical person, but I'm not a Pollyanna. We're going backwards, people. We have to acknowledge that, and then we have to face the reality. We are not going to grow our way out of the problems that we have. The economy is doing well, better than expected. The Republicans have taken credit for that, and yet they did nothing to make it happen. But they certainly are glad that it did happen because they've taken credit for it in their publications. But the reality is economic growth is not going to give us the funds to make the investments we need in our infrastructure, in our roads, and in our schools. We've got to face it, we've got to deal with it, and be honest about it and come up with concrete solutions and not talk like everything is Pollyannish, that things are wonderful. They're not. We don't make these investments, we are going to pay billions and billions of dollars in economic growth in the future. We are so short-sighted. We are using what I call a failing business strategy. We can only spend this much, and so we're only going to do this much, and we hope things will get better. We've got to say, we have to believe they're going to get better and make the investments to make it happen. Let's not wait for it to happen and then make the investments, because it ain't going to happen that way.
Okay, let me return to the question at hand. On Metrobus, certainly it's something that gets my son from workplace to workplace, so something I'm very familiar with. He chooses not to drive. And I was a co-author on the bill that Senator Peterson mentioned for Greater Minnesota Transit. Supported that very much. I also carried one of the agency bills from MnDOT in 2011. That bill included at least designating the path that connects up our trail, so two of our trails, the Lake Wobegon Trail to the Mississippi River Trail that's here in town, so that at some point perhaps those two trails could connect and they could be a better use as a transportation mechanism for those that choose to ride their bikes to go to work, and maybe also get some of those St. Ben students like my daughter to come in and visit her mom and dad. That'd be a good thing too. So those are a couple of things I've supported on North Star. North Star, I think I'll agree with Mr. McCarter and Senator Peterson. I think that Southwest corridor is going to get more attention. I do think in the meantime, it's been 10 years since we've actually done a real study of the North Star benefit and cost. And I think it's time for us to go back and take another look at that. The costs are different both on the construction side and on the fuel side. And those two changes in those two prices directly and can significantly change the cost-benefit ratio on that project. I think we should go take another look at it.
As far as supporting and encouraging some of these transportation options, I think that Ann-Nolan brought up a good point about accessibility. If you want people to utilize these public transportation systems, then they need to be accessible and they need to get people to the locations that they want to get to. And if changing some of those schedules or adding additional routes or additional trains, that is going to increase ridership, then that's something that we need to do. I would support bringing the North Star up to St. Cloud and Rice and even Little Falls. I mean, some of the projects that we're talking about is a congestion that's going to be built up all the way back to Little Falls. Well, some of that congestion can be eliminated by having a commuter rail, another option for people to transport themselves to their work location, then that's an important thing that we need to encourage and support. I might have been misunderstanding the question. A lot of people are talking about recreational trails or different things like that, but I think that the bicycling is talking about commuting. There's a lot of smaller communities that are starting to make things more accessible for individuals who want to ride their bike to their workplace. Even cities such as Little Falls have created bike lanes. Minneapolis is one of the leaders in the number of people that are commuting on their bicycles. And so I think that if we want to encourage that type of transportation, then we need to support that, and you need to have something in place, bike lanes or whatever it is, and you need to educate the community as to how those bike lanes and those different things work. Just as when we started the roundabouts, we had a lot of issues with that. You have to educate the community on how those things work. And so that's how I would support and encourage those types of transportation.
You can hang on to the mic because I'm going to ask this, and we couldn't get everyone's question in, but there's one question since we had roads and we had the North Star Corps, I want to ask just one quick airport thing at the end, but I'm going to make this easy for you. First of all, we're not going to have the closing comments that we normally have. I'll just do it for you. Everyone up here would like you to vote for them. So we'll do that. And I want to thank our sponsors here, the Minnesota Transportation Alliance, the CMTA, the Central Minnesota Transportation Alliance, the APO, MnDOT, all the folks who, and of course look at all the placards, all the folks that actually helped for your lunch and sponsored this actual event today. Give them a huge round of applause. This last question, and the way it is written here, is Minnesota airports are a vital piece of the state and national transportation system. How much importance do you place on the state airports fund, which pays for airport projects in the state of Minnesota? And I'm just going to add a little piece to make this really quick. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it is the most important thing in transportation for the airports fund, 1 being the least. All you need to do is say a number, and we'll start at that end, and we'll come this way, and we'll let the candidates then have the last word. And again, thanks for everybody for coming. That's the question.
So you want me to say a number 1 through 10?
See, already too much. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, 10 being the fund, the airport's fund, as being the most critical to aviation programs, and 1 being the least important. Scale of 10 to 1.
8. I'm not speaking very educated about that. I'm sorry.
Is this just for aviation or for all transportation? Dave,
the fuel tax, the fund that the aviation fund,
okay,
the fund that the state a few years ago took and balanced the budget with.
Okay, no, that
fund.
Okay.
The aviation fuel tax fund that goes into Minnesota.
All right, I'll take the 8 too.
I'll take a 6.
I'll take an 8.
8 sounds like a good number.
7.99.
I feel like I'm on, what's that, Price is Right? And usually, you bid $1 under or something, or $1 off, but I know I'm going to go with an 8.
I'll go with a 10 because I believe if you tell somebody it's going to get spent on a certain topic, it should get spent on that.
What numbers are still available? No, 8.
I actually agree with John Peterson on this one.
I'll say attend also.
It messed, it's not even a phone anymore, it's an alcohol machine. Go about 8 and we need to, we borrowed from that fund to make it look like we balanced the budget. Enough of the shift, shaft, and spin gimmicks. Let's spend those monies what they were dedicated to.
All right, and again, with that, I want to first of all thank our candidates and elected officials, and also the candidates and elected officials in the rooms, our city council members, county commissioner, township board, mayors. These folks put a lot, this is a difficult task to represent and to run for office. So again, thanks for them for being willing to spend the last few hours, and all of you for being here today for the Transportation Forum. Thanks.